It is a genuine form of rebellion to produce things on your own. And I'm going to work on producing more things this upcoming year. I'm going to build myself a moonshine still. Not because I like to drink. I'm not a teetotaler, or teetotaler, however you say it. But I don't drink often. Very seldom. But I think it's a skill worth having. And it's in my blood. It's something that I need to learn. The other thing I'm going to try to produce, we are going to try to produce, is a child. Because, I mean, really, I think a lot of people talk about these different forms of activism in these circles. The best form of activism you can ever do, I believe, is to procreate, to bring another native European life into this world, and to raise it well. That's the greatest form of activism, and any of you watching this that's got children already, as I've said before, you're doing the work of providence. You're doing what needs to be done. That was a video clip from a video that I made at the end of November last year. And although I've failed to build a moonshine still, I think I managed to succeed in the more important and pressing endeavor. This is my daughter. It was less than a year after I made and posted that video that she arrived. You doing alright? See, look at this head of hair she got. She's about to start crying. Because I'm sure she's hungry. Probably better get her upstairs to her mother here in a minute. But she's healthy. She weighed 8 pounds even. Well, 7 pounds and 15 ounces. It's okay. It's okay. Let me go ahead and get her up there and I'll have something more to say. Come on. It's been a while since I've posted anything. My time and energy has been devoted to more pressing responsibilities. This was a long time coming. I was starting to wonder and starting to worry that perhaps I might never have a child. When I was growing up, it was like I was always taught. You could say that perhaps in my late teen years and early 20s, I was somewhat of an anti-natalist. Because from an early age, the public education system indoctrinates you that having a child when you're young is like a disaster. It's a catastrophe. Which, I mean, there are times when that can be a very difficult thing for a young couple or a young woman. And I myself, when I was younger, didn't want children. I fell for, I guess you could say, the anti-natalist psyop. Now, I have listened to some anti-natalist videos the last few months. And I will say there's some things that they say that I agree with, but overall, I just view anti-natalism as nonsensical. At least if you have the views that we have. Now, when I turned 27, which was about 9 years ago, I started to feel that the sort of paternal urge, I guess you could say. That was the age that my father was when I was born. I'm the oldest of 2 sons. And when I hit 27, I started to think that perhaps it wouldn't be such a bad thing if I did have a child. I'd been dating my wife for a while now, at that time. And I started to view it differently. Now, of course, basically from the age of 28 up until I was 31, if we had had a child at that time, I don't think with any certainty that I can say that I would have been a good father. I've mentioned about it, I've talked about it before, the years of meth. You know, back then I used to think that, I was embroiled in that lifestyle of criminality. But even back then I used to think that perhaps having a child would be the only thing that pulled me out of that life. You know, I would have liked to think that I would have had the decency to straighten up if such an event had occurred, but I can't say that with certainty. I would like to think that, but who knows? I could have been a horrible father. Could have been not even present. So everything worked out how it's supposed to have worked out. And from the time I got cleaned up, 32, 33, 34, 35, each year that passed, it became a little more pressing. And I became a little more worried. And it's kind of a relief, even though this is just the beginning of an entirely new journey. What are you doing back there, Bo? You know, and I would encourage it to everyone that's watching this. If you don't have children yet, I would encourage natalism. And you know, it may not be for everybody. I don't believe that everyone should procreate. But if you have a decent head on your shoulders and you have our views, really the best thing you can do is to find a suitable mate, a quality person, and try to build your own family. The idea, you know, I've gained a whole new level of admiration for feminine strength, you could say. The act of labor is a trip. It's wild. And you know, while men are the stronger sex, there is something to definitely be said about feminine strength in the act of childbirth. You know, my wife, her pregnancy, I'm shocked at how smoothly the entire thing went. I truly am. Because I did not know what to expect. I mean, this is our first child. I didn't know what to expect. Everything went so smoothly and wonderfully up until about the last 10, 15 minutes. My wife gave birth naturally. And within the last 10 minutes, she didn't take an epidural, spinal block, anything like that. My daughter's umbilical cord had ruptured. I was going to cut the cord and everything, you know. But about 10 minutes before her birth, I could tell that things were going awry because the doctor, she called for more help. And it turns out that my daughter had shoulder dystocia, which I had never even heard of this. It's kind of a rare event. But when she was born, she did not rotate properly in the birth canal. Her shoulder got caught on my wife's pubic bone. And they had to go in there and rotate her. And my wife had to get stitched up. She had 4th degree tears. When I first seen my daughter, it was me and my sister-in-law standing back there. When they pulled her out, she had one eye open. I could see her head full of hair. And they rushed her over to the table. And my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, was standing next to her head holding her hand, and she was weeping. And my baby wasn't crying. And I rushed up to my wife, and she was yelling, "What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her?" And I mean, this is all, it's pretty hectic. But after about 10 seconds, I heard my daughter start screaming. And then I knew everything was going to be fine. It's the best sound I've ever heard. So, in the future, when we have more children, they'll probably be delivered C-section. Most likely. But everything is fine. And I want to thank everybody for all the well wishes, for all of the congratulations, because it's really appreciated. I want to thank my mother. She came down here and stayed with us for a month because my daughter was born late. She was born 9 days past her due date. And she stayed down here and helped. I want to thank my mother-in-law because she came down here and stayed a couple of weeks. And my wife's grandmother, who's down here currently staying with us. I love this because ever since this pregnancy, I have kind of witnessed my family and my wife's family come together. I think that's a trend of the future, is sort of a clannish family structure. It's not just about the nuclear family. You want to have everyone else involved. The elders, the uncles, the aunts, the cousins. I think this is the future, build your own tribe. And, I do not mind the idea of a multi-generational household, And in fact, that is why here within a few years, me and my wife, we plan, I don't know how many years it'll take, maybe 3 to 7, but we do plan on returning to home. Because I want my children to grow up around their cousins, their grandparents. I don't want to live down here, 3.5, 4 hours away, kind of on an island. We're kind of by ourselves down here. We don't have any blood down here. That's why I want to return home. So she will grow up having easy access to the rest of her family. And that's one of the things I have a sense of pride about in Appalachia is kind of how the extended family works, this clannish family structure. And you look at it, even though this clannish family structure can result in blood feuds sometimes, one of the ways that blood feuds were ended, was through intermarriage between the feuding families. And this goes on back through history, It's a part of our native European heritage. Is there anything else, it's a little different with a daughter. I imagine that I would be probably much more harsh on sons. Because I would want my sons to be prepared for a world that could be very brutal. If I had sons, I'd kind of want to cultivate the extremes in them. I'd want them to be extremely kind and loyal to those who are genuinely good to them and their family. But I would also want to cultivate a sense of ruthlessness to those who may wish them harm. Maybe I should be careful what I wish for. But it's kind of like the idea of unleashing your sons upon the world, you could say. Listen at me over here talking about things that I truly have no experience about, but I certainly wouldn't want to raise pushovers. I wouldn't want to raise victims. I wouldn't want to raise easy marks because, let's be real here, the world, although it's domesticated and mundane, it can still hit you in the mouth and it can be a very harsh and brutal place. And I think with what we see, with the continued downward trend in this society, your children are going to have to know how to navigate and deal with these things. But with a daughter, it's a different feeling. It's like you kind of just want to protect. Of course you want to protect your sons when they're young too, you know. But with a daughter, it's like I find myself just wanting to shield her from a lot of this madness. It's going to be a learning curve, to say the least. It's going to be a real experience. You know, I know I'm kind of rambling here. Is there anything else? I also wanted to throw this in there. Got to. You know, I don't regret anything at all that I've done in my life. The few good things, the many wrong things that I've done. Because, you know, I look at it through, I guess, Hegel's view of history, which says that we could not have gotten to this point without every single thing that came beforehand. All the good and all the bad, the positive and the negative. So I regret nothing, you know. I'm middle-aged. This is my first child, but hopefully we will have a couple more here within the next few years. My wife isn't 30 yet. She'll be 30 next year. So I'm hoping that we'll have a couple more. And I regret none of it. Because even though, through all my failings in the past, all the horrible decisions that I had made in my youth, I don't regret any of them. Because I wouldn't be here in this current form right now with the things that I have and the things that I've learned. And, you know, I'm just going to build my family. And leading up to whenever we do return back home, to build up my community, to leave a mark, a positive mark in some way. So I regret nothing, and I mean that. But yeah, I would encourage natalism to anybody that's watching this, and you have the means to do so. And you have the qualities that are worthy of being passed on to the future generation. You should consider it. And even if you do not have children, you can still be a huge asset to perhaps your nieces or nephews, you know, or cousins. You know, there's a part to play for everybody. You know, this is the greatest thing that I've ever done. You know, my life has taken on a whole new sense of meaning. And as far as the future of this channel, don't expect anything with any sort of regularity from now on for a while. I just ain't going to have the time. And sometimes I've noticed over the past year, I don't know if I really have the drive. There's still people that I'll talk to, that I want to interview. There's still topics and subjects that I want to talk about. But as far as like with any regularity like I've done the last few years, it's just not going to happen. You know, my friend Billy Bob, he asked me back in the summer, he asked me a serious question, and I feel like I never gave him an answer. It was a question that honestly, I don't know if I could answer. So I'm going to try to do that right now. You know, when I started this channel, it was all about saving our people. But after, you know, quickly you learn, and you know, there's a little bit of ego attached with such things. I won't deny that. Of course not. I wanted to have a big channel and put my message out there. But over time, I've came to realize that you can only do your part, your individual part. And from observing a lot of the trends in this movement, even from decades ago up until today, over the last 4 years that I've bore witness to these things, the movement falls short. The cause is one of the most worthy things there is, and I mean, you see it with recent news regarding this, large political organization that was, just an LLC. I mean, you see that this isn't, it's a mess, to be honest. The movement and the quality of people it tends to attract, not all, I have met some high-minded and high-quality individuals in my time in this, but it also draws in a lot of other things, a lot of negativity. It's kind of strange, the cause is one of the most worthy things one can take up, but the movement itself is, well, let's be frank, it's shit a lot of times, unfortunately. Billy Bob had asked me what my end game was for this channel. And I've already became jaded quite a bit with things. I couldn't give him an answer back in the summer when he asked me this. What I just mentioned to you, that was the first part. And over time, I'm quite glad that this channel has stayed small, I don't want to be an e-celeb. Fuck that. Don't care for it. I kind of like flying under the radar. I like talking about history, and I want to see our people, reclaim a sense of sovereignty. I want to see the heritage Appalachian regain a sense of pride and to pick himself up. But to be honest, I feel like I've failed in all those endeavors in some sort of way. I don't think I've made a dent in anything. So that leaves me, what is the end game of this channel? What was the purpose? I guess the only purpose I can settle on is to try to give you, the viewer, to try to instill in you on an individual level that you do have some power. In the grand scheme of things, it may be insignificant, but you do have a sense of power, and you have a will that you can cultivate and that you can use to acquire the things that you want and that you need in this life. You do not have to be a victim. You shouldn't be a victim. I don't want to see you wallow in victimhood. I want to see you, if you're in a position like I was 5 years ago, where your life is not where you want it to be in the least. I want to see you, there's many factors that we can blame. I've talked about this at length before. There's many factors that we can blame. And of course there is blame to go around. But for you to succeed, the first step is you have to have a little accountability in yourself. And this is where that power comes in. You can't do nothing about a problem, whatever it may be, unless you know what the problem is. And from there, you drive forward. That's basically, I guess, the end game for this channel. I know it's became less less ostentatious as time went on, but you realize that you can only do your part, and I would hope that some of the things I've talked about might have helped a few people, maybe. But that's all I have to say. I want to thank everybody for everything, and I'll talk to y'all later. Y'all have a merry YULE, Merry Christmas. I hope you can spend it with your families and amongst your loved ones. And get ready for next year. I want to thank y'all for watching. Goodbye for now.